Ding. Okay, it's a distinct pleasure to introduce Mary. She is a Rotarian since 2002 and is a frequent speaker and trainer in the Rotary world. She's a practicing clinical psychologist and has a vast knowledge of human behavior, emotions, and coping, which is why we asked her, and that's where my quote starts, is and I believe it's to speak with us. She is a member, I believe, of the Johnstown, Pennsylvania Club, home of the famous Johnstown flood. I had an opportunity to speak to their club some time ago. They're a nice group. So here's Mary.
Hi, everybody. Yes, you nailed it. Yes, Johnstown, super famous for death and destruction by flooding. You want to visit, don't you? Well, thanks for having me, you guys. I guess I'm talking to folks from all over the United States. Let's see, I think everyone is muted, it looks like. Yes, sirree. If you have questions at the end, just press your space bar and that will actually unmute you for the time that you're speaking if you hold down your space bar. But I'm just gonna go ahead and jump in because, you know, we're all probably feeling a little bit wacky at this point. Overwhelmed, anxious, irritable, maybe mentally, emotionally, and physically fatigued because, you know, this is unprecedented times. So I'm here today to kind of try to give you a few tips to help create better balance in your life and maybe help you stay a little more sane during these really strange times. Okay, so first and foremost, usually I tell my patients when they have any kind of issue going on that information is typically power, that the information is usually good. However, in this situation, it seems like the information is coming at us like a fire hose. So it's information overload. So at this point, I want to tell you the first thing you need to do to stay sane is to begin to limit your information. I do this by eliminating my information to 2 times per day. I start my day off with a reliable source, typically my state or my county source, to get what I need to know for today, for, you know, the next couple days maybe. And then I end my day around 5 or 6 o'clock with something that's more global in perspective. Regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, so that I know what's coming in the days to come. But I do not check any information sources in between. I mean, our phones are just way too accessible now, and it really does mean that we are inputting information much too often, and that actually is increasing our anxiety and increasing your stress. I also would recommend that you check no news informations past 7 p.m. You've got to allow your mind to decompress and recover from the day and of the stresses of this time. So nothing past 7. Okay, my second hot tip of the day is about routine. So routine is a predictor actually of personal well-being. And just like children, adults actually do better when they know what is expected of them, especially when under stress. And in fact, the lack of routine can actually make you feel lethargic and doubtful. So I want you during this time, especially if you're working from home, to stick to an 8-hour per day schedule. But I want you to chunk that 8 hours into 2-hour increments. And at the end of every 2 hours, I want you to actually get up, get away from the computer, go into a different room, and even better, if you can, get outside for 10 minutes. And I want you to take a break. And if you do this every 2 hours, you won't feel like you're having so much cabin fever or computer stress. And by the end of the day, you actually should feel more productive and more successful by chunking your schedule into 2 hours. So routine is also a bit about taking care of yourself. The stay-at-home order, we shouldn't think of the stay-at-home order as an excuse to, you know, just give everything up, to become a couch potato, stop exercising, eat and binge drink. In fact, you know, this time more than ever, is a time we actually should be thinking about how important our nutrition is, how important our fitness goals are, and how important it is to hydrate. Science actually has proven that the more stressed you become, the faster your body will dehydrate. So I want you to every day within your schedule to write down your fitness goals are, what your nutrition goals are, and what your hydration goals are. I recommend at least 60 ounces of water per day. And when you write down your goals, whether it's for these 3 things or whether it's business goals, you actually will find out that you're increasing your personal accountability to reaching those goals, and you'll have a greater chance of being successful. Okay, so let's now spend a few minutes talking about the fun little neurotransmitter in our brains that is known as dopamine. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter that when released in our brain helps us to experience euphoria or happiness. And when dopamine is released, we tend to, the experience that we have makes us actually want more. So we begin to chase it in some ways. So I want to teach you some ways that you can actually promote or force the release of dopamine. And we're going to do it by 2 simple things. The first, let me see if I can get my screen to go into, all right, here we go. The first is, I want you to actually, all of you right now for the next couple seconds, think about something that you're grateful for. Just take a moment and reflect on what you're grateful for. Okay, now I want all of you to lean into the camera a little bit closer, and I want you all to smile just for about 5 seconds. Ready? Go. Smile. Okay, so you can stop smiling. Those 2 things that you just did actually forced your brain to begin to release dopamine into presynaptic gaps. And that encourages elevation of mood. So you can actually force the load of dopamine in your brain by doing gratitude statements, writing them down, reflecting on what you're grateful for, and by smiling. And science has actually taught us that smiling, a whole lot like the yawn, is very contagious. So if you actually smile at other people, they will have the inclination to smile right back at you. So if you want to infect other people with something better than the virus, infect them with your smile, and then you'll be infecting them with the release of dopamine. So these are 2 things that you can actually control. With my patients at work who are depressed, we actually do smiling exercises in my office, and I have smiling exercises for them to do as homework. And again, this changes the chemistry in the brain and gets the brain thinking on new patterns to help them to decrease depressive episodes. And it can really help in stressful times like this. Now, one of the worst enemies of dopamine is anxiety. And the fastest way that you all can become anxious is through what I call what if thinking. What if thinking is sort of like this, okay? If my business fails because of COVID-19? What if this quarantine lasts more than 60 days? What if I get sick? What if somebody else I know gets sick? All this what if thinking is actually putting your mindset in the future. And anxiety breeds best when you're in the future. It breeds fairly well in the past, and that's what I would call should've, would've, could've thinking, but it breeds best in the future thinking. Anxiety has the hardest time breeding in the absolute here and now, the absolute presence, when you're mindfully present in your life. Anxiety has a very hard time existing there. So when you get caught up in what if thinking or some form of worrying, the part of the brain that sort of activates the anxiety response is called the amygdala, and it's in the limbic system. And the amygdala sends a message to the hypothalamus to sound the alarm, which then sets off your fight, flight, or freeze response. And that's what creates that autonomic nervous system response, such as sweating, butterflies, or just those nerves that you get, i.e. feeling anxious. And so people who have anxiety disorders or panic disorders, panic attacks, they have a hyperactive amygdala response system with that hypothalamus. And that's what causes them to be in that constant state of arousal, that uneasy, nervous state of arousal. So I want to teach you today 2 ways that you can shut the amygdala system and that relay system to the hypothalamus down. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is a breathing exercise. And for those of you who think you know what deep breathing is, I hope you do, but for those of you who don't, I'm going to teach you the proper way of doing a deep breathing exercise. So first and foremost, you have to breathe in through your nose. And then you have to actually hold your breath, and then you exhale through your mouth. The intake and the output must be extremely slow as you can possibly make it. And you hold your breath for as long as possible. I like to use my body, like to inhale with my body, pulling my neck up. I like to let my whole body just relax down when I let go, because it'll help your body to get in a relaxed state of mind. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you right now. Okay, so here I go with my inhale. On my count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Very slow. Okay, I'm finally full. Holding. And exhale. Pinching my lips. Okay, I'm done. You see how long that took? That is a true deep breath exercise. And again, I like with my patients to have them do it 2 or 3 times, but always, always, always do it seated, because it can actually make you feel a little lightheaded and kind of good. So do it seated so you don't fall over. So I want everyone to lean in a little bit towards their cameras. Okay, good. We're all going to try it together, okay? On my count of 3, exhaling everything. 1, 2, 3. Now inhale very slowly. Good. Keep going. Holding. And exhale, pinching your lips. Good. All right, blow out the COVID, exactly. Now check in with yourself. Like, do you notice something just slightly different about your physiology? You should. Now imagine doing this 2 or 3 times. This is incredibly relaxing for the body and the mind, okay? And that turns off the anxiety centers. Now, another thing that turns off the anxiety centers, I'm going to share my screen with you here, if I can. This is a thing that I just love. Okay. Okay. Now, Terry, I can see you on my screen. Give me the thumbs up if you can see that, sharing my screen. Terry, good. All right. So David Grand, he is my favorite bilateral artist. He calls his actually biolateral therapy. But he's the one, I just think his product is the best. But you can go to iTunes, YouTube, anything, Spotify, and find bilateral sound just about anywhere. And what this does, I'm going to stop sharing now. Hopefully you all got that information. So what this does is it's a type of sound therapy I use with almost all of my clients. You use earbuds after you download it, and it's either music or nature sounds, and you listen to it, and it goes from your right ear to your left ear, from your right ear to your left ear, and your eyes are closed, and you'll notice that your eyes begin to track the sound very naturally. You won't have to force it. And what that does is it creates a brain wave that actually crosses the 2 hemispheres of the brain across the midline. And when that happens, the amygdala and that relay message to the hypothalamus turn themselves off completely. It's like the two cannot coexist together. And this creates an incredibly calming state of mind. It's wonderful for anxiety, depression, sleep issues, irritability. I use it with anger management clients. I use it even with my eyes open when I'm working on a lot of paperwork issues where I have to focus. It's just an amazing, amazing therapeutic technique, and that shuts all of that anxiety centers down. So I want you to all download that and try that for yourselves, or send that off to someone you know that might need it, okay? Now, the last thing that I want to give you as far as a tip is, I want you to think about the fact that while there's many, many aspects of this situation that we cannot control, what we can control is our decision as to how we are going to handle the situation. Because life is not on pause just because of this. So you can either use this for the better, or you can fail to use it at all. At this point, you need to decide what you want to do with this time. You perhaps maybe learning a new language or getting through some books that you want to read. For me, I'm taking master classes online, I'm taking some from David Sedaris about writing, and he's one of my favorite authors, and I'm taking some cooking classes from Thomas Keller. So those are the things that I want to come out of this with. But I want you to set some goals, some short-term goals, so that you are more likely to come out of this mentally, physically, and emotionally healthier. I believe that there will be many interesting changes that come about from this. Perhaps even a renaissance of the human spirit. We're going to value things differently. The human touch will be valued differently forever. Family dinners. I mean, when did we lose the family dinner? I was born in 1967, and when I grew up, my parents made dinner every night. We ate dinner together every single night. But at some point in the last 20 years, that went by the wayside. Guess what? That's back. So we're going to have a change of our human spirit, and our connections to each other and our communities will be stronger than others. But at the end of this, yes, you will be different, but hopefully you'll be different for the better. The choice is yours. So those are my hot little tips for how to stay sane during COVID-19 craziness. And I want to open it up to questions in the audience, and you can just press your space bar if you'd like to ask me something. And it was a lot of information in 15 minutes.
So breathing is a really an interesting topic. I've taken for the last 4 years a lot of standardized tests, and I don't do well on standardized tests. So I've developed a little sort of a breathing technique that I use, because the tests that I take are 8 hours long. It's a big deal, and they're life-changing every time you take one. And so this breathing technique that I've developed has saved my life and my career for sure. And so this is big stuff. It really is. It's huge stuff. So
how is yours different, Brian? How is your breathing technique different, perhaps?
So I started out in a mindfulness class when I was in medical school, and we were doing some breathing, and it occurred to me that that I could visualize. I could use some visualization, which is not a mindfulness technique, but I use a hot fire, and I breathe in an orange, like hot fire, and I breathe out all of the negativity and the exhaustion and all the. It's an imagery technique that I use, and we don't have a lot of time on these medical board exams. But if I can take 5 minutes to do a breathing, then I can save 20 on a block, and it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, and what you just said is so important. It doesn't have to be 5 minutes. It could be 30 seconds. Each breath should take about 30 seconds. But you know, a limited amount of time, if you put your effort into it, will pay off tremendously with mindful techniques. Bilateral sound is usually 3 to 6 minutes, you know, before it has the effect. And any kind of meditation doesn't take long, but you've just got to make it the priority to get your day started or the moment started in the right direction. Thank you for that. Other questions, thoughts?
Spacebar is not working for me.
Well, unmute yourselves and talk.
I just unmuted. Hey, Mary, I just got curious. Had you ever experienced anybody or anything called laughing yoga by chance?
Laughing yoga, no.
It gives you an incredible experience. It's an incredible release experience, and it's we have one gentleman. Actually, he's going to be our incoming governor in 2 years, who is a teacher of that. It's pretty neat. He actually did it here about a year ago with the Rotary International Board of Directors. And it's a great release.
Oh, I'm so gonna Google it. Yeah, there's something about laughing, you know, that whole dopamine release. And I would imagine if you're doing it in a mindful yoga space, that could really be compounding in a positive way. I'm gonna Google that. Thank you.
When you first experience it, when you first few 30 seconds or something like that, you feel so plastic, but it's unbelievable how quickly you release out of it.
Huh. I'm definitely going to Google that. Thank you.
On stress, I've always heard that you never see a motorcycle parked outside of a psychiatrist's office.
I actually have a few guys who ride in to see me, so.
This is my therapy as well, the motorcycle riding.
They're riding the wrong kind of motorcycle then.
A popular pup.
Yeah,
I think one of the great things about the deep breathing with motorcycling is
Yes.
after you have one of those shit moments about just about getting taken out by a car, it's good time to take a deep breath and kind of let it go.
You have
Mary,
to pull over and make sure there's no buttonholes you've cut in the seat, you know, along with that.
Mary, Brian may have introduced you as to what Rotary Club you're in. Can you repeat that?
Well, he told me that this was the motorcycling Rotary Club from all over the United States and some bits and parts of Canada too, right?
But what club are you in, Mary?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am in the Rotary Club of Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And so that's in the southwest corner of Johnstown, about an hour and a half east of Pittsburgh.
I almost matched in Reading. It was a close thing.
They have a good club too. They seem, and you had a motorcycle dealer in your club at one point, didn't you? Mary?
In Johnstown?
I think so.
Well, I've been in the club since 2002-ish. So there are no motorcycle dealerships around here. I think the closest one we have is in Somerset, and that's a Harley dealership.
This was, Jerry, I think you met
No,
up with
that was
him.
back in the 1940s, John.
That far back? Okay.
No, I don't know.
I thought it was your club. Now, it was about a half-hour club ride, and it was not a Harley dealership.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll have to poke around and ask that question.
John, I think you're talking about Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Altoona, Johnstown, yeah. You know what?
Same
You're right. It was Altoona. Never mind.
You're talking about,
Can you talk a little bit more about exercise and stress relief?
Sure. So exercise, when you exercise, even for about 10 minutes, the chemical that gets released in your brain is called serotonin. And serotonin is a natural defense mechanism against depression and anxiety as well. And dopamine and serotonin love to play together. They really thrive off of each other. So even in those 2-hour increments that I talked about taking a break, if you can even do jumping jacks or take a brisk walk for 10 minutes, you're going to be releasing the chemical serotonin in your body. And exercise, that serotonin release will absolutely help to bring down stress. I have a treadmill at my office, and even sometimes in between clients, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes, if I get on that treadmill and just do a brisk walk for a few minutes, it's unbelievable how it changes not only the chemistry in your body, but you'll notice the mindset change. You'll notice an immediate, if you pay attention to what your body is telling you, if you listen and you reflect mindfully, you'll notice you're like, I feel different. So it's as much exercise as you can get, even in small increments, is great for keeping stress and anxiety down.
Thank you very much. It's been a very good presentation and very timely.
My pleasure, you guys. My pleasure. Well, if there's nothing else, I am going to hop off and have a little dinner with my husband. It's been such a pleasure meeting with you all. I just love doing these. I've got 45 of them scheduled. And so I was glad you guys got me real quick in the beginning, because I've got a lot coming up here in the near future. Absolutely my pleasure. If you have any questions, just find me on Facebook. Happy to answer them, or email me or what have you, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Stay safe, everybody. Bye.
Do we have her email address? Somebody?
She does have a Facebook page. That's how I contacted her.
What was the name? Mary something?
Mary
B-A-R-G-E.
Berge, B-E-R-G.
So anybody want to tell me
Berge.
why my spacebar thing doesn't work?
Berge.
My Spacebar.
The spacebar trick. Push to talk.
Sometimes it kind of locks up.
It what?
Sometimes it just kind of locks up.
Do you have any like fancy key bindings going on, Jerry?
Oh, you know what? That's it. I got this in international keyboard mode.
I'll bet that's what it is.
No, I'm in US English right now.
Oh yeah, okay. And you don't have spacebar a custom key binding for something?
Oh, there it's working now. Sure, make me a liar.
What'd you do?
I see how you
All you have to do is ask for help. That's how things get fixed. Show a mechanic and things, nothing will be wrong with your car. You know how that works.
That used to happen to me for years around computers. I've always been pretty good about computers. My wife would be upset about something not working. I just go and stand next to her and ask her to tell me what it is and show me, and it always works every time.
Proximity factor.
And it always pisses
What?
her off at me.
What factor?
Proximity.
Okay.
When the technician is standing near the machine, you can't reproduce the malfunction.
I used to joke that I always scared the machine into, submission.
Yeah, into submission, yeah.
It never
I tell
helped
my
me.
wife her first mistake is using a Mac, but she doesn't like that.
It never helped me that I used to tell her it was an ID 110 error.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, ID 10T.
Not too many people know
I
that.
said that wrong first. It's ID 10T.
Oh, only computer people know that one.
Not too many people know that one.
Those of you that don't know it, you write it out and it spells idiot.
Well,
I like PEBCAC.
PEBCAC is great. But the real story behind ID10T was back in the old days when there was a command.com and an autoexec.bat. We used to make a comment in the command.com file that said user equals ID10T. And then the next guy that came along to work on the computer knew that the computer was an idiot.
My favorite is that automotive part that you can get at the store, the 710 cap. Anybody familiar with the 710 cap? I'll let you write it
Same with
out.
the oil cap?
Yeah, pretty much.
We sent a guy from the machine shop down to get muffler bearings, and he came back and he said, you know, there's no muffler bearings at the, and we said, no, chrome, they got to be chrome muffler bearings. And he went back and he still couldn't.
Wow.
Headlight fluid is always a fun time too.
Well, they did that to me. They sent me for it was the red eye or the fisheye remover, and I thought they were sending me for the left-handed wrench, so I didn't buy it. Purchasing person that I am, and then production line got low on it, and I got chewed out. And there's actually fisheye remover for the paint line, and I didn't buy it. So I'm always super cautious when somebody sends me for something. So that sounds like too good to be true, but yeah, I wasn't going to fall for it, but I actually did fall for it. So, and if you're wondering what fisheye remover is, it's a little thing you put in the paint to keep it from bubbling up and creating a fisheye on shock absorber paint. And it's
It's not on the same shelf as the headlight fluid, is it?
Pardon?
It's not on the same shelf as the headlight fluid, is it?
No.
Oh, fisheye remover is actually a real paint additive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those chrome muscle bearings are only used on Harleys.
Yeah, muffler bearings, yeah, they only use them on Harleys. Actually, you know what? I'm kind of looking at a Harley out of the corner of my eye. I've got a Shark Nose 103 in my sights at this point. I've been kind of thinking about buying a Street Glide.
Harold's shaking his head there.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me too.
But we know what Harold,
You guys
biases
are
are.
envious? I've had my wife's approval to buy a new motorcycle for 2 years and I haven't done it yet. Still looking.
my problem is that I don't have approval to buy another motorcycle. I have approval to buy a new motorcycle, but I don't have approval to buy another motorcycle. So
You see, that's the problem. It's a twofold problem. They don't make the new Goldwing in yellow either.
I'll bet there's some real talented painters though in your area.
Oh, yeah.
And Brian,
Well,
you know
it's
the old
probably a good-
saying, you should never own a motorcycle after 50. 50 is quite enough motorcycles to have.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
I think that's funnier in print.
Oh, it's pretty good.
Brian, this is probably a pretty good time to pick one up just because, people were unloading them to get some cash for living expenses.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. I actually saw a 15 black denim, perfect, like wonderful, with 6,000 miles on it, and yeah, and it was 11 grand. It was like, oh my god, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what car dealers are doing now. Is it a good time to buy a car?
Yeah. Probably.
And houses is also good.
Name your price.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but in
the
some
real estate stuff's
states
going
in Michigan, the real estate agents can't even walk you through the house.
Right.
We're actually able to, and I got pre-approved at 3%, so I'm pretty happy about that. It's going up a little bit, but that's a pretty good rate. So I'm
Yeah, but
happy.
my kids wanted to look at a house up in Michigan, and they could put an offer in on it, they could buy it, but they couldn't walk through it. And first house, they didn't want to buy a house sight unseen, so
That's smart.
yeah.
But I mean, most real estate realtors now are doing those virtual walkthroughs now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not.
But it's different.
Easy to hide a crack in the foundation or soggy spots in the in the yard, and if you don't know the neighborhood or you don't know the house, that's pretty risky if you don't have the money to risk.
But you
Absolutely.
can
You can't see what the
always
realtor
hire
doesn't
this-
show you.
but you can always, we have this time you send an inspector through the house. And
Yeah,
he have
they
to
won't
go
even let
inside
you
the
do
house.
that. I mean, they won't let the real
Really?
estate agents work. They're considered non-essential.
Then they sell no houses.
No houses.
So, will somebody tell me who Tom Kale is? I'd like to. I don't know who this person is. I'm probably.
Hi, Tom.
Tom's an associate member of our
Hi,
club.
y'all.
He's been on a couple meetings, but it's been quite a while.
Here we go.
Yeah, it's just my second meeting.
Well, how's it going?
It's
Welcome.
fine.
It's good to see
Well,
you.
we're having fun. We're having
Welcome,
fun
dude.
down here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We had a little storm activity here the other night. So
Yeah, you did.
we got people in crisis mode with tornadoes. We got a really devastating situation down here.
In Chattanooga?
I have a house in Tryon, which is just south of you in Georgia, and I got creamed. That tornado just knocked the crap out of my cabin up there. It's near Lookout Mountain. It's some people.
Tryon got hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
So you're in Chattanooga? They have a very good BMW dealership in Chattanooga.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I know. When we had our trip to North Carolina, we stopped there because Chris had a flat tire. So we stopped there. That was amazing, these guys.
Good people.
Really good.
They have a good workshop here too, Burns.
Why is it that every time I talk to a BMW owner, they always tell me about the dealership? I'm worried about supporting
That's a good question.
I'm worried about.
I can tell you. Brian, I can tell you exactly. We have in Houston and surrounding, I think South Houston, North Houston, I think 4 or 5 dealerships. Okay, they're selling BMWs, and all of them, without one, they have a very good service. Every other one, when you bring the tile over there and you get it back and it's in the wrong direction, hello, what I'm talking about, and this, the service and the dealership, they don't do anything, so I have only one I can really recommend it, but all the others are crap.
Are we
This is
talking
why it's
about
important to have a good
BMWs or Harleys here?
No, the BMW.
BMWs. I've always done my own service on all my bikes. And all the special tools and all the stuff in BMW terrifies me to own a BMW.
True.
Because I can't work on it.
Yeah. Okay. The one thing is, when you have a newer machine and mine is still under warranty, you have to go in and have a service. Every other thing my husband is doing, he's a mechanical engineer, so it's no problem for him at all.
Jeff's just got too many bikes and too many versions of parts.
Wait a minute.
That can happen.
This club just said too many bikes. Okay, you know what? We don't.
I know. No such thing. No such thing. I get it.
This club normally, but I think you need to go to the donate button and go ahead and donate.
No. He's got one for every reason. Just go ask him. One for every reason, every season.
Good excuse.
It's kind of like, dresses and outfits in the closet.
Mickey, how many bikes do you have?
Well, he just sold mine, so all right now I've got a scooter and that's it.
Yeah, but you own half of that one with the sidecar too.
Oh, we got the sidecar, that's true.
And you're in charge of that one, aren't you?
I am.
But this is with the hunting and the hunter and the hooter, right? Is that right? So that's the reason why.
That's right. That's right. Best accessory on the bike.
Yeah, I just cleaned mine yesterday and I made a ride because you cannot have a goal, The weather is gorgeous outside. It was a little bit chilly this morning. It was only 48 or 49 in the morning, but so sunny, and we have a cold front from the north, but it's so gorgeous. The air is dry, it's not humid, it's so perfect. And so I was making a ride to my husband, drink a coffee with him, and then I go back, only to make a ride, because you cannot go anywhere with the bike. You cannot stop and eat something or drink something, so this is really horrible right now. So
it snowed today.
Clean your bike. Why did you clean a GS? I don't understand.
Because I'm a German, maybe.
Because you're supposed
And the women and not a guy, you know, he let it rotting.
it's supposed
I
to
clean
have
it only
mud.
twice a year, so don't worry about it. But it was so dirty after Bandera. I think I had a like this kind of bug. I thought it's a little bird or whatever in my, you know, it breaks everything.
You're only supposed to wash it to inspect for damage.
No, I make it twice most of the time, twice in the year.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the first time, so don't worry.
Well, I'll have you all know that I put a battery in my bike and rode up to Winter Haven, had a look around. So it's been nice to be back on the road. But
Yes.
there's less people on the road here in Miami right now. So that's pretty good.
Here too. It's no traffic, stocking traffic or whatever when I came back, so that's good.
Yeah, it's probably a dream to drive in Miami right now.
Yeah, it's surreal.
The Bay Area too. I drove to the office yesterday and it's just flying. It's like, you know, I was probably averaging 80, hitting 90 for much of the way there, just because there's just hardly anything out.
But honestly, I have the feeling the people right now are so much faster than they are normally, right?
Yeah.
Because the streets are free. They can't fly.
Oh,
Streets
yeah.
are free and there's
Yeah.
no police to be seen.
Yes,
So
you're right.
Scott,
Sadly, the
speed
Blue
limit-
Ridge, the National Park Service is shutting down parts of the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is, I live right by it, so I'm losing parts of my rides.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
They're actually
You have a lot
Tennessee
more.
ride.
they're actually shutting
You're
down.
kidding me, Paul. They're shutting down the parkway?
They're closing the parkway. If you Google Blue Ridge Parkway,
Yep.
you know, real-time maps, you can see the maps. If I go up, I'm about 1.5 miles from one entrance. I can't drive southwest on the parkway. It's closed. I can drive northeast,
Mhm.
but they're closing because there are too many people going out and hanging out in parks.
Yeah, they shut
Yeah.
down the Cherahalla
Cherahalla, too.
early. I mean, the Cherahalla's been
Yep.
shut for about 3 weeks.
Really?
And Deals, part of Deals is closed. I usually go on a ride out there in the spring, but I backed out of it this year because it's like, okay, I'm going to fly out there and rent a bike for what? You know?
Mhm.
They got the Mommy Walleye Run, and they're trying to keep people from, you know, shoulder to shoulder. If they're not careful, they'll get that shut down. And they've already told the birders to stay away. This is usually the big week for all the birders. Nationals are usually overwhelmed by, you know, a ton of birders in the area. None of them came this year.
I was listening to that Motorcycles and Misfits podcast, the one after the one that you were on, actually, Scott. They were talking about
Sure.
should we ride or should we not ride, and there was really, you know, like I think it's a really good point. You know, if you go down right now, there's a good chance that you're not going to get medical care, and if you are, it's you know, you're going to expose yourself to COVID-19. So
Well, that's
Yeah.
what my son was saying about the ski resorts. It's not so much the ski resorts can't run or that you're wearing face masks or whatever. It's just if you get hurt, they don't have the people or the wherewithal to haul you off the mountain and take care of you.
Yeah, it depends on where you're at. Bay Area, we're still pretty good out here since California shut down on the early side. But some places, yeah, where the medical system is close to overwhelmed already.
yeah, we're right on the edge here in Florida for sure.
This is what I want to
Yeah.
ask you guys. Is it not now in California and in Florida it goes down, or is it still California was starting so much earlier than Texas, by the way. So is it in California and in Florida better now from the, you know, from the new infected people? Is the numbers not going down now?
No, actually, so California is going to have a really flat peak, and it's going to be really late. But Florida, our peak is coming up on the 24th, and we shut down really, really late. Like if you look at South Florida in the news, like we had people on the beach up until maybe 2 weeks ago, or maybe two and a half weeks ago. because people just don't observe anything here. When it becomes a suggestion, people go, yeah, whatever. It just doesn't. Yeah, I mean, we don't have good citizens here. It's more people just care about themselves.
And in California?
Most people are pretty observant. I mean, I'm seeing, some masks when people aren't walking their dogs on the street and so on. But by and large, most people are following the guidelines to shut down.
And especially when you are outside, it's not when you're not hanging together. And right now we have the humidity is also hard because it presses everything down, so it cannot go away. But when you have a good breeze like now and the weather is clear, then the infection danger is, I think, outside not that bad than it is in rooms. And I saw a German video the other day, and they said because of this microscopic small particles from this virus, it's good to open the windows. So I'm a guy, I like to open the windows and took the fresh air in the whole house so it can switch. So but in our area, Houston, yes, it's Harris County. There's a lot because a lot of people sitting so close to each other, but we are a little bit south, so we have nothing. I don't know what it's with John in Dallas, what it's with you. That is a hotspot as well, I think.
New York State the governor just issued an executive decree. Masks are required starting 3 days from now for anybody going out who might be more than within 6 feet of anybody else. The demand for masks is going to skyrocket.
Well, yeah, we have masks required as well, and it's a good plan. Scott, though, my question is, in California, are they saying that you can't go out to exercise? That's not essential now? Because here,
no,
I don't know.
You can go out.
You can get out
you
to
go out and walk
exercise,
the dog.
Yeah.
We go. Susan and I go out every day and walk. We went out to a county park yesterday, and you can do that. I took this picture out at the county park, and as long as you are careful on the trail, they limit the number of people, you just. Well, the trouble is we met some people yesterday, and there was a cliff on one side and poison oak on the other. Makes it a little tough, but other than that, it's people are pretty spread out.
Yeah.
We have that here too. It's a lot of people on the street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the background behind me is a picture from last weekend. I went hiking with my son and the dog, and it's up in the East Bay Hills. And there are some narrow trail places on the trail too, where not everybody's wearing masks. It's not mandatory. It's a good idea, but you never know when you're going to come on to somebody around the corner.
We've noticed an uptick in traffic around here since Sunday. It's kind of like everybody hit Easter and decided it's time to get out and get around because, like you down in Houston, the weather here is great after Sunday's tornadoes.
Yes.
But we've noticed that a lot, and but the plus side is we just got today. We can get tested now without symptoms, so we're finally seeing real testing here.
Congratulations.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Here's not even enough tests for everybody.
Yeah, it's coming, but it's not there yet. It's certainly behind, unfortunately.
But we're kind of unique here. We got a high school here in Chattanooga that had the equipment on campus to do testing, and they actually got licensed to do it by the FDA, and they're handling all of Hamilton County's testing. They can do 300 to 400 tests a day they can process at a high school.
Oh, that's really nice.
Cool.
You can determine if you're infected. You lose your sense of smell. So if you Harley owners can't smell the smoke coming out of your exhaust, you might be infected.
Oh, seriously.
We're going so fast, we never get to smell our exhaust.
That's right. On a more serious note, it turns out that the PCR testing that we've been doing, the swab testing, has about a 30% false negative rate. So if you think you might have had symptoms and you've tested negative, it would behoove you to wait until the antibody test comes out and take the antibody test, because the false negative rate is very high. So just a point.
Brian, how can you really call that swab testing? I mean, it's my understanding they jam that Q-tip back into your brain.
Yeah, you're right.
It's technically a swab, but it's more like a brush. And yeah, I've done a bunch of them, and it's not pleasant.
Yeah. So how safe is it to give blood if you've been quarantined, or what do you call it, sequestered in your house for a while and you've no symptoms, but you've never been tested?
Well, blood is an interesting thing, right? Yeah. Does the virus live in the blood for a long time? We honestly don't know if it denatures in the blood. And so we know that it's carried in the respiratory tissues and the droplets. We really don't know if it's carried in the blood or not. And so I would say that if you feel like you haven't had any symptoms and you're healthy, I would recommend that you go get blood. Absolutely.
And they can find it out. Can they find it out?
They can, yeah. They if they have the capacity, they can test for the virus with what's called IgM, or it's what you would call antibodies.
So will they tell you if you go in and give blood? Will they tell you if to have an antibody or not?
Unfortunately, that's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Brian, are you seeing the Abbott test out there yet?
Itself to go in.
Not yet. We're not seeing the Abbott test here, but we're looking forward to it because, you know, this is a test that for healthcare workers is really important, right? I had symptoms and I tested negative, and I'm about to start working in a hospital, and I would very much like to know if I have
superpowers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the you know, I'm with Thermo, and so, you know, we get a lot of inside story about the production of the tests and so on. But as you were saying, I think what's happening is the samples, the swabs, can degrade a little bit by the time they reach the testing center, and that's where we get the false negatives, right?
Well, that's one way, and that's a big way. They're supposed to freeze the samples, but unfortunately, you know, they'll, especially down here in Florida, right? It's hot. And so those samples will go into a tube and they'll go into a bucket, and are they going to make it in time? So that's a big problem. And I won't say that I've seen on the boards a concentration of false negatives here, because the biggest concentration of false negatives I've seen is in Washington and Jacksonville and a little further north. And so it may be a lab issue as much as it is a collection issue. And then also, somebody else was making the point that it's not a comfortable test to do, right? You put that swab up, and it's the same as the flu test, and I've done hundreds of these. You put that swab, as soon as you get past and you start getting to that gag reflex, these patients are drawn back and they're very uncomfortable, and it's a hard test to do. And so really, you know, to get viable cells is a hard thing. So
now we got the spit test that's come out. So hopefully that's going to actually pan out to be a real, the one out of Rutgers, be a real test that is reasonably reliable.
Is that running on the Abbott technology too? I don't know what their underpinning tech is.
The spit test is another company, and it's not, it doesn't have anything to do with blood. And so I don't know how that's going to work out. If the question really becomes, do you have a good population of respiratory epithelium in your spit at all times, right? And if you do, then it's probably a good test. And if you don't, then it may be a questionable test. We just have to find out, right? It's research that we haven't done yet. So
In Germany, they really, counted the numbers where it started first and who was connected with them. They made a really big history of everything what comes in for each, how you call it, file or whatever, or patient. And right now they're starting because they say when their people are infected and they, survived or whatever, even with symptoms or not symptoms, they build it anti-körper, we say it. So, and this is what they're doing right now. They test if the people build this anti-körper, and if they do that, they are able, because they say they are mostly can work because they are not in the risk zone as well. And they working in this right now. They're working with everything what they have. I think there's 2 companies in Germany right now. I think one Trump wanted to buy because they're very close to have the serum to make a shot to.
I read that story. That was outrageous.
Yeah.
But that's what you're talking. You're talking about antibodies, Ute. That's
right.
Yeah, anti-körper. Exactly. Yeah, it's the same word. Thank you.
Yep. Well, that and the contact tracing, so they try to figure out who has been in contact with who.
Yes, they made a really, a searching about who started with that first. That was people in Bavaria. They worked in a company, a Chinese person from Wuhan come in and made she was for the business over there. And then the people that was, sharing with her the lunch and touched the same thing she touched us, they got it. And they all was going, and then they right away kept them in quarantine as soon as they find out they're all together. And this is why, and then of course, since I think 5 weeks now, they are under quarantine and nobody can go out or in. No restaurant is open, but they are a little bit earlier than we are. I think we are 3 or 4 weeks behind them. This is what is happening right now.
Okay.
And they think they will open it up a little bit, not to everyone, but a little bit up in May now. So. And I hope maybe here it will be open something too, hopefully. We didn't make the 4-way test, guys. They are all leaving right now.
No, I think I got to get scooting too. And I don't get to see Jeff for much during the evening, so I think I'm going to take off pretty soon.
Still have
So we're ready for a 4-way test.
Bye, Michaela.
Sure.
It's we don't have
right over my desk here. I'm going to kick us off.
Oh yeah.
Number 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all
concerned?
3,
will it build goodwill and better friendships?
4, will it be beneficial
to all concerned? And 5th,
5, will it be fun?
Yes. Hi, Rob.
Next week. See you later.
Yeah.